Bon dia a tothom. Good morning to everybody. Bonjour and welcome to Barcelona. Welcome to Hospital Clínic. My name is Joseph Campistol. I am a clinical nephrologist and now I am the CEO of Hospital Clínic. And for me, it's a great pleasure to welcome you, to welcome the organization to our hospital. That's a university hospital. As you can see, it's a quite old hospital. It was built at the end of the 19th century, so longer than 125 years ago. Thank you very much. It's a university hospital, very, very close to university and also very close to the research. As you can see, there are two very important bridges here that connected Hospital Clínic with the University of Barcelona, School of Medicine, and we are very, very related with this institution. We start with university, we continue with university, and we think that university is absolutely essential for our development. I just want to say thank you very much. Thank you very much to bring this meeting to our hospital, who has been working quite hard in the last 5 to 6 years with Dr. Joan Escarrabill in the patient experience in our institution. I think we developed a quite good journey on this purpose. I think it's absolutely necessary, really, the role, the work, and the presence of the patients in all our process. And you will see in the round table that we have at the end of this introduction. And I hope that in the future, patients will be really in the presence, patients will have word, and patients will participate in all our process. To deal a hospital, it's not easy. Probably it's the most difficult structure, the most difficult institution, the most difficult company, I think, in the world, because there are many, many things ongoing. Health is in the middle, which is crucial for us. But I think we try to do our best, as you can try to do. And again, patients needs to be really in the middle, and patients need to be a very active work. That's what we try to do, and that's what we try to develop with Dr. Escarrabill in the last 5 years. I am sure that Joan will explain to you what we have been doing, the memory in the last 5 years, and we try to progress and we try to improve our development. So thank you very much, really, thank you very much, to bring the meeting to Barcelona. It's a great pleasure for me, and I think now it's a time that will present the institution. I will present the process to you. So go ahead and thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm very impressed to be here because most of you weren't there 3 years ago when we started SPX Awards. So it's nice to see you, and good morning first. I would like first also thank Hospital Clínic, our host for today, and of course Mrs. Bertral for her kindness and spending time with us. I'm also grateful for the three CEO, Campistol, Mr. Noppen, Mr. Patty. They will share their tips with us during the round table in a few minutes, and that round table will be moderated by Michel Warneck. So thank you, Michel. I'm really thankful for the all the participants of SPX Award from the session 2023. Even those who are not here with the finalists, so thank you for them, and thank you for you to be there with us. Thank you also to UZ Brussels Foundation and MSD Spain for supporting our event. And after that, the first thing that I would like to say is that SPX want to make a major contribution to taking patient needs into account by positioning the patient experience as an essential structuring of healthcare system. Health remains an important, very important concern for most of the people. How can I be and stay healthy? What should I do when I feel ill? There are important questions, as you know, and those questions are added to the new value that society is adopting now. Values that will have to be aware to be able to answer those questions. It's not about a commercial approach of health, but about recognizing people's expectations and needs and being attentive to the way which people express them. It's very important for us. Sorry. There are two tips to keep in mind and two facts that impact our subject today. On one hand, is the access to information in general, which reduces the asymmetry of information between patient and professional. On the other hand, value is no longer dictated only by quality of service, but also by how the patient feels about it. You know that. So, as Edouard Portella, our vice president, once said, the patient experience is not a fact. It's quite the opposite. The patient experience has a significant contribution to make the organization of healthcare because people remain sa raison d'être in French. All the members of SPX are convinced of what I've just described. But there is a very long way to go, planted of skeptics. As for the climate, just like those who still deny climate, despite the evident Earth degradation. Patient experience is a newborn. Patient experience is at the childhood of his life. That's why SPX shared patient experience exists today. We aim to grow our community of professionals and leaders who share our beliefs and are committed to supporting patients and their families and close ones also. By joining our association, you can be sure of professional support in a spirit of sharing and complete independence. At SPX, we contribute to develop the patient experience in all parts of healthcare system by influencing top managers, clinical leaders, and management executives. So, why focusing especially on those three groups? Because they are the essential agent of the change. They are also, without their contribution, without their contribution and also the complicity, the development might be more complex. Because the patient experience forces us to change organization and professional practice. Therefore, management itself, its clinical practice, and they are the architect of this process. In short, because they are responsible for implementing the strategy and building the vision. Whether it's a question of sharing experience or choosing themes, pragmatism dominates our approach. This makes it much easier to exchange experience on the ground, which is our priority. All the institutions, organizations, and companies that make up the healthcare and medical social system are the focus of SPX attention. SPX works with them to develop initiatives and activities which a single watchword share. It's this spirit in mind that we have launched SPX AWARDS 3 years ago. I'm happy and proud to hand it over to my colleagues, Nathalie and Stéphane. I don't know where is it. And thank you very much. And before that, I think we can start the roundtable with the three CEO and Michel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. So Young. And now, as she mentioned, I think it's time to start the roundtable.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name is Michelle, and above all, I am a passionate nurse with a great interest for patient experience, as I was once hospitalized for 2 years as a patient myself. Grateful to be a host of this roundtable, I would like to introduce our speakers. Monsieur Artus Paty, General Manager at the Henri Becquerel Center in France. Next to him, we have Dr. Josep Campistol, difficult name, General Director of the Hospital Clínic here in Barcelona. Thank you for having us all.
Thank you very much.
And then next to him, we have Professor and Dr. Monsieur Marc Knoppe, CEO of the University Hospital in Brussels. Welcome, gentlemen, and thank you for joining us. I will ask a few questions on which we can discuss this beautiful topic together. We have 1 hour, and after that, an additional 30 minutes for some questions out of the audience. Let's dive in. I would like to start with you, Artus. You're the A question: what are your strategies to develop patient experience in your institutes?
What
Open
kind
question.
Yeah, it's very open.
Yeah.
Well, our strategy is to put really the patient at the center of all our strategic medical and scientific plan. We built our new medical and scientific plan with one goal, which is hyper-personalization of all the healthcare we provide. So we really think that we can't speak of 5P medicine if we don't take in account the patient experience.
Okay.
It's really something that has become really essential. And in cancer care, we always try to pioneer new models. You know, in cancer centers, comprehensive cancer centers, we develop multidisciplinary teams, we develop supportive care, and we always try to have a holistic approach of the patient. We don't see a pathology, we see a patient, we see a family, we see its needs prior to hospitalization, we see its needs after hospitalization, and really our ambition is to help people to improve their quality of life, to improve a whole care pathway that's including our hospital, but also what is before and what is after.
Yes. You see the patient as a whole, we
Yes.
can say. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you maybe give an example of a certain strategy that you have implemented or are trying to implement?
You mean some examples of actions?
Yes, maybe.
Well, I could give you two examples. The first action we implemented was that actually we're building a new hospital, a new comprehensive cancer center, and well, we told ourselves we were speaking for years, for decades, that hello, we put the patient at the center. All that we do it in the name of patients, but well, we never really gave the ability to patients to speak.
Yeah.
We never really heard them. We never really gave them the opportunity to co-build our strategies. So we told ourselves, okay, now we are going to create a new group, a new committee, which is called the Becquerel Lab, which is a group of patient partners.
Okay.
They are all volunteers, and they are coordinated by a former patient and caregiver, which is named Emmanuel Hoche. she's now an employee of our hospital. And we involve the patients and the caregivers at every stage
Yes.
of the conception of the organization of the new hospital, of the building of the new hospital, and we went even quite a bit far because we worked with a polysensorial designer
Okay.
to integrate really the perceptions, the senses for patients, caregivers, and for workers in our hospital. And we have also started the well certification process, well building certification process, and maybe we will be the first hospital in Europe to be certified. And it is a certification that focus on the well-being of patients and the well-being of workers.
Yes.
So it's something really essential for us.
Yeah.
So that's the first action we started.
So actually you let the patient themselves co-create
Yes.
the strategy.
They're invited to each meeting.
Yeah.
We work with them. We give them the ability to say what they would like, and it's really interesting because it helps our professionals to understand the meaning of what they do. It's really, I think, a lever for attractiveness for healthcare professionals.
Yes.
And of course, there are plenty of other actions we are working on. Lastly, we are involving our patient partners in a new living lab. The goal is to take in account the patient experience and the caregiver experience through a whole care pathway through a digital solution, so that we don't focus on the patient experience in silos, but really on a care pathway with different healthcare professionals. And that's something we can do also because we're working closely with healthcare professionals in outside hospital, with liberal nurses, with practitioners outside the hospital, with the process of helping and teaching the nurses and the doctors outside hospitals with Cancer-Label. So we have created a network of professionals around the hospital, and that helps us also to be able to think of a patient's experience in a whole process and not just in one service or one institution.
Yeah. You try to open up the vision and
Yes.
try to look at it. Yes, not to be... Okay.
But it's not always easy.
No, of course. Very interesting. Gentlemen, is there anything that pops into mind on this subject you would like to add? Integrating our patients into developing strategies?
Thank you very much, really, for the round table. As I mentioned at the introduction, I think to have the patient in the center, it's absolutely essential. It's something very easy, but also very difficult to implement it. In this hospital that I mentioned at the beginning, we are a university hospital. In 2016, we started our new strategic plan, and we try to change the things, and we try to focus in two important points. One, it's patients, and the second one, it's professionals. And professionals are also very important, because if the professionals are not good, are not happy, they could not develop their work, it's very difficult really to have a good feeling and good treatment of our patients, not only in the technical point of view, also in the human point of view. But I think there is one very important mind, it's to consider that all of us will be sometime a patient.
Absolutely.
We are a patient, will be a patient, our family will be a patient, and then we need to consider how we want to be treated. and how we want to be treated as a patient, that's what we need to do with our patients. And we need to be treated first as a person, as a human, with the respect, which I think it's a very important point. Second, to share the information, to share clinical decisions, and to be close to the patients and to adapt it to the patient, because patients are different. We are different and patients are different. And we, as a professionals, physicians and nurses, need to adapt of this diversity of our patients, because some patients want a lot of information because it's a very smart patients, because they want to check everything in Google, because they want to know everything. There are other patients who don't want to know anything because they prefer that you are the physician, you take the decisions, and I trust in you, and that's it. And then we need to adapt it. But I think the most important point is to consider the patients in the middle, to consider that we are also patients, and to treat our patients in global as how we want to be treated ourselves. And then if the patients want to share all the information, the patients want to share the different options of the treatment, we need to share the options of the treatment. And that's what I think we need to do. Again, I think it's very easy to express in a PowerPoint, but then it's very difficult to introduce in a hospital. If you are a small hospital, a monographic hospital, maybe it's a little bit easier. When you deal a big hospital with 7,000 professionals, 1,500 physicians, it's not so easy, because we are different, professions are different, our backup is different, and that's the key point. But the key point is to be patients in the middle and try to do our best, because tomorrow will be a patient.
Thank you. Second question for you, Josep. With what
Thank
kind?
you very much. Much easier than Campistel.
Monsieur Campistel.
No, Joseph, it's okay. Joseph, it's okay.
Can you give an example with what kind of actions did you already start here at the hospital?
As I mentioned before, with the leader of Dr. Joan Escarravell 6 or 7 years ago, we started really quite a strong program on the patient's experience, on the role of the patients. And I just want to mention 2 or 3 activities. We have a commission with the patients. Every 3 months, we meet with these, it's 6 to 8 patients. It's not a representative role of the patient, but it's quite patients of the hospital of different diseases. They want to be involved, and they want to give feedback to us as how the patient is going. We explain different actions to the patients. It's a commission. I am in the commission. Joan Escarravell organized the commission, and every 3 months we deal with them, we meet with them. It's a 2 hours meeting. We explain different projects of the hospital, and they give us a feedback, how are the things going, and what they consider could be improved. And that's one good activity. I think it's very well introduced. There is the medical director, the nurse director, the director of quality, Dr. Escarravell, the person who take care of patients' attention. It's, I think, 6 or 7 patients from the hospital and 6 to 8 patients every 3 months. That's one good activity. The other activity, as Paul, it's a name? No, Artus. I mentioned when we do building an infrastructure of the hospital, patients are from the beginning. And that's very important, because, as you know, that's a quite old hospital. So every day there are different rebuildings, different restructurings, and different things, and patients need to be there. And we just opened 2 important things. One is the international patients or international travelers attention, which is just in front of the hospital, and patients and people in general well from the beginning. And the second thing is the pain hospital day. The pain hospital day, which is something quite special. Pain, it's a very negative, not the disease, a very negative sensation, a very negative emotion. And I think it's very important. Usually it's chronic situation, because when it's acute, it's different. So to listen the patients, to be patient at the beginning, it's very important. And the result is a very specific place, different than the rest of the hospital, and patients were in the development of this structure from the beginning, which I think is important. And then Joan organized many different meetings with patients with renal disease, patients with oncology, patients with liver diseases, to know how we are dealing, how we are developing structures, and many times they give a different view, and many times they give advice to change things and to improve things. So I think patients are quite well introduced in the hospital. Probably It's a journey. Probably we are, I don't know if in the middle or the beginning, but we are in the journey. And every day, I think all the physicians and nurses consider that the voice of the patient is essential to improve things, and we consider patients. That's some activities that we develop.
Yes, nice, because obviously as a healthcare professional, it is wrong to think we know what is best for the patient.
Sure,
Yes,
sure.
our patient knows best, yeah.
The patients know.
Yes.
The patients know how they feel. The patients know that they don't feel good. The patients know that the worst in there, it's the pain. Or the worst in there, they cannot walk. So patients, we need to interact with the patients, and we need to ask with the patients what is important for them.
To really understand
Exactly.
their
And
needs.
patients are different. Male are different, female are different, young are different than
Yes.
old people. So we need to understand what they really want, what they really need, and then we need to adapt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you said, the difference between a patient who wants to know everything and somebody
Sure,
else is that you
it's
decide.
absolutely clear.
Yes.
It's absolutely clear. It depends on many different things, from the intellectuality of the patient, from the culture of the patient. There are patients who really wants to know everything, and there are patients who trust on the professionals, and I don't want to know everything. Do the best that you can, and that's it for me. Other patients are asking, they really have a second opinion, they go to Google, they go to another physician, though it's absolutely important to adapt on this diversity, which I think it's also good. It's also good for us.
Not so easy, no?
It's a culture.
Challenge.
It's challenge. It's challenge, and I think it's a culture. We
Yes,
cannot do from
culture.
the beginning. I think it's a journey, and it's a culture to change the dynamics of the hospital.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not just me as a nurse, not just the doctor, it's
a culture of the
Yes.
institution. Yeah.
So we have to feel it in
Yes.
the whole
in the
yeah.
whole strategic
Yes.
plan, on the whole culture, on the whole atmosphere of the hospital, and also in the research, and also at the university. Yeah.
Yes. Third question for Mark. We've heard a lot of positive things, all the reasons why we should focus on patient experience. Where do you think that the difficulties and the challenges lie in this vision? Yes.
Well,
I kept the most tricky question as
it's
last.
good to be the last of the third one, because
Yeah.
everything I heard is like music in my ears, and
Yes.
actually the word culture, it's written
Yes.
down here.
Yeah.
You know, we once did an exercise. In Belgium, there are 103 hospitals, and they all have a website. And we did a study on those websites, and we anonymized the websites. And then we asked a panel, can you pick the hospital with the website? And it's amazing. It's 103 similar websites.
Yes.
The patient is central.
Yes.
So that's, of course, is opening an open door. The opposite would have been very curious if there would have been the patient is not central in our hospital. So this means that it's very easy to fall into the trap that's saying, okay, and you can make nice PowerPoints probably about it. But actually, what we then did is we took an interview of 2,500 patients. And we asked them, what is important for you? Why do you come to this hospital? Or why? And we also interviewed patients who didn't come to our hospital. And we asked them, what are you looking for in the hospital? And not so much to our surprise, there are various things why they would choose a hospital. What is not the reason in general, on average, is medical expertise, except for exceptional pathologies and complex stuff. But in general, people say people who work in hospitals and university hospitals especially, they are professionals. They know their business. So this is not why we choose you. The thing why they chose us, or what is most important for them, and that is for every patient, including the Dr. Google patient or the older patient, etc., it is the way how you are treated, between brackets, not medically, but as a person, as a human. And it's about respect, it's about politeness, it's about dignity, it's about openness, inclusion. And that is what is really the thing, the common denominator of almost every patient. And that was an eye-opener. And since we know that, and for objectively, because I like evidence-based management, and these are hard data, and we try to include that in everything we do. And how can you create a culture or an atmosphere where people are feeling welcomed, that is if your personnel expresses this. So the mainstay of the whole program of patient experience is personnel delight. The personnel has to be the people who are in the front office, and even though those in the back office, have to be impregnated by this culture, right? And so, for instance, we do much more actions towards the personnel than towards the patients, because automatically, if your personnel is happy, they will translate it and express it towards the patients. Now, we also do formal things. We have patients, I do exactly the same as you, a little group of patients I see every few months. We are building or thinking about rebuilding our polyclinics, and so we have patients in the advisory board. We have patients in our ethics committee. We have patients in our foundation, etc. So we include them formally. But that is okay. You have to do it, I think. What is much more interesting, I think, are the very, very many small things that really make the change. And you can picture it like an iceberg, where 90% is below the surface. That is our profession. That is the management, the processes, getting everything all right. And the 10% above, that is empathy and this culture. And that for me is the most difficult part of my job, is to endorse and to maintain this cultural aspect. Mm-hmm. If you know that a normal turnover of personnel in our hospital is 6% per year, that means that after 10 years, 50% of our staff is renewed. You have to try to get it into the wallpaper, into the DNA of the institution. And that is for me and it goes from very small things to quite formal things. Actually, it's almost in everything.
I would like to pick in on your turnover. It's a problem. I had a talk with you, Artus, this morning on exactly that topic, and you explained me how you have less turnover of staff. And I think it would be quite interesting for everybody to know, how do you do that? What's your secret?
Well, I don't know if there's a secret, but I totally agree with what my colleagues just said. I think one of the key points is to treat our professionals well, because if you have sufficient nurses, sufficient practitioners in a hospital, they have the meaning of their work. They know they can do good work. They know they can treat well patients. They know they have sufficient time to develop empathy for the patients. And when you do this, well, what I told you this morning, our nurses have maybe the lowest wages, and yet we have we have very low turnover. We have the lowest rate of absenteeism.
Absenteeism.
And our nurses have less patients to treat than in other hospitals, and yet we have the highest rate of productivity. So it's maybe not intuitive, but when you give sufficient means for healthcare providers to work, they're proud of what they do, and they can really take in account the requirements of the patients, and you enter a good circle. And I really think it's the way to build a strategy, and not just something at short term with only economical issues. That doesn't work. And all the hospitals around me that has only budget issues in mind, well, actually, they're just falling down. So you have to do something else. Actually, the current healthcare systems are having bad times. Hospitals are having bad times. We went through 2 years of COVID. We went through inflation. Um, things get more and more expensive each year. But if you don't do some organizational revolution, you will fall. Our systems, our social security systems can't face these issues. So you have to do things differently.
So what I hear everybody saying, okay, our topic, patient experience, we can't just focus on the patient only. We have to focus on our healthcare professionals as well. And it's actually both that will align together, and a happy healthcare professional will, we will gain a happy patient.
Maybe tomorrow we have different robots working in the hospital, so maybe it will be easier. I don't know. Probably not. Probably not easier. Not so good.
Yeah.
But I think today that the work is done by professionals. It's nurses. It's physicians. It's different teams. So I think we need to focus on the professionals. As I mentioned, and Mark also mentioned, I think there is a cultural change in all organizations to think about patients, to think about team working, and about to be close to the patients. That's the key point.
The patient in the whole, the families, the stories before
the
and
also
after.
the families, the families has a very important role.
Yes, absolutely.
The young people who come in now, and I'm a very old man, so I can say it, so they are from another generation, Generation Z, or I don't know what. But there's another interpretation of work-life balance for the moment at this time, so we have to take care about that and respect it, and I'm very glad. If we follow this, we need a bit more people, because of this new balance, but this is the new reality, and today it's the worker that chooses the place to work, and not vice versa, right? So you have to be attractive in order to attract people, but also to keep them. And that is a major challenge.
To keep them, and also to introduce the culture. When there is young people going into an organization, they need to know, and they need to be
it's
able.
much more purpose-driven than it used to be in our days.
That's it. That I think it's absolutely crucial.
And not just on your website, like you said.
Exactly.
It needs to be, yes, you need to
needs
feel
be
it.
there, day to day, patient to patient.
Yes. Okay.
It is linked to values. You can't say that you treat patients well if you don't have sufficient nurses and practitioners. It's evident.
And you can measure it in our outpatient clinic. We see about, let's say, between 3,000 and 4,000 patients a day, and everybody is interviewed electronically. So everybody has a chance to give NPS and open feedback. The NPS score is good, but that's an integration. But it's the open fields that are interesting, what people actually say about their personal experience.
And often it's things you would never think
you
about.
would never think of, or you would say, okay, that's not important, and say, if you see the trend coming in, because we have a lot of construction going on, and it's always complex and in wayfinding, right? Now, I'm there every day, so once I know it, it's okay. I have to go like this now. But if you come there as a patient, you are sick, you're in anxiety, and so and you don't find. And this is really little things with good wayfinding, with good, and that is again this respect and for patients, and it's in the small things. It's not, and it doesn't have to cost money. It's a culture.
It's a culture. It's an attitude.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
everywhere.
It's everywhere. But it's not so difficult, because we want always the same. We want to feel good, to be treated with respect, to be treated as a human, to be treated as a diversity, to be on time, not 1 hour later. That's a very important thing. I don't know how it is in Belgium, in France. Here, physicians are not very on time, so that's a very important point. and to be treated as we want to be treated.
Yes.
But it's not, it's minimal
Yeah,
things and to be empathic.
you know, little tricks that is interesting because we are handling a biological phenomenon, so there is time variation. We are not making cars or something, so there will be delays.
Sure.
So what we do now is we have TV screens in the waiting rooms where the actual delay in real time is saying. So in the numbers, you have to wait 15 minutes because Dr. X is still in the OR or whatever.
Sure, sure.
But
Oh,
if
I
people
can-
know, then
yes.
it's not a problem.
Exactly.
Much easier,
Oh, I
much
have
easier.
time to get a coffee.
Yeah.
Much
Yes,
easier,
yes,
much easier.
yeah.
Sure,
Exactly.
sure,
So it's in little things.
sure.
Interesting, gentlemen. Maybe we can go into the audience if there is anybody with a reflection or a question somebody would like to pick into.
I'm sure that Mrs. Montaner, he's very active in the shared patient experience, want to make any comment. Endavant, doctora. Va.
Somebody daring to speak up?
Va, doctora Montaner, no fallis quedar malament. Please, go ahead. Oh, micro.
Yes.
You're going to speak in French or in English? Christina?
Français?
I'm a patient of Hospital Clínic, and I've seen
He's a fan of Dr. Jonas Carrera.
I've seen all the changes coming
Yes.
in, and actually, what Dr. Campistol has said, we all be in the end patients, and so we only have to think how we want the people who we love to be treated.
Yes.
And that's very easy to have just in mind.
So it's for you, it should be a mentality shift. Like
Yes.
Yes.
We should all be working for thinking about the others and thinking about what would be the best way to be treated and to feel for everybody.
Yes. So actually we have to put ourselves, ask the question, how do I want to be treated as a patient? And then
Actually, when doctors have a big disease, here in Catalonia, the doctors have created an association to change the way people are treated. And since their experience being ill, the problem is that when they are well again and they start working again,
yes,
they
they forget. Yes.
a little bit. But it's very nice when they are very active in
Yeah.
their association because they say exactly what patients say
Yes.
from our associations.
Yes. So maybe the whole health industry has to be sick first and then they can experience themselves.
Probably.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. À côté. Oui? No? Anybody else daring to speak up? Gentlemen, want to pick in still on something that
I just
you've
want to make a
written down,
comment,
or-
about the comment from Mark that absolutely agree. I think but there is another point that I want to open the discussion. When we incorporate a professional, could be a nurse, could be a physician, usually their technical abilities, their technical skills are usually very good because if they are not so good, they are working here or they are working in Brussels or in other good hospitals. So what we want from these professionals, apart from they are good professionals in clinical nephrology, in surgery, in endocrinology, in everything, it's to be first a good person, and second to be an empathic person. I think it's very important. It's crucial for the institution, and it's crucial for the patients. The problem I don't know how it's in Belgium or how it's in France, when we don't have the 2 points. When we don't have good professionals, because there are not good professionals technically, and they are not so good in relationship. And that's another important point. I don't know how it's in France or in Belgium. But that's a difficult point here because we have difficulties to incorporate physicians. Maybe not in Barcelona, maybe not here, maybe not in the university hospitals, but in small hospitals around the city or 200 kilometers north, it's difficult to find professionals. Then the professionals that you incorporate, you don't know how good he or she is. And that's technically. And that's an important point. Because first they need to be technically good. Then, of course, to be a good person, it's to be empathic with the patients. But if technically it's not so good, that's another difficulty for the system. And I don't know how difficult it's in Belgium and France, but here, especially in the peripheric areas, north of Catalonia or south of Catalonia, it's not so easy to find physicians with technically good and technically accepted.
And also personality.
And also
that's-
personality.
yes.
That's another problem.
Yeah,
Yes.
I don't know how it's in Belgium.
Yeah, in terms of professional expertise, let's say, I think it's like a Gauss curve, right? You have the spread around the average. As a leading university hospital in general, the people who work with us, we don't have so much professional issues. It's more cultural issues.
Sure.
And I have in my office, I have a saying behind me that says, the culture of the organization is determined by the worst behavior tolerated by the CEO. So if I am informed about toxic behavior, out.
Out. That's good.
And it's always, it ends up in the courtroom, and up until now, we have always won.
And can you do out of
Out.
this person? Yeah, although it's a public hospital?
It doesn't matter if it's public or private, and doctors are very well protected because you have medical councils, you have rules and laws, etc. But if we have evidence of toxic behavior, and I have, it's not that I like it because it's a terrible moment.
Sure, very difficult.
It's a terrible moment also for me. But I'm now in office 17 years, and I've outed about 10 doctors.
10 doctors.
The last one was a superstar, technical superstar,
We have some here also.
and he was toxic
Sure.
because it was he himself and him, and he was not a team player, and the team was dying, and he was a superstar, and we just last month we said goodbye. Said, okay, you may be the best in the world, but not
we
here.
don't want here.
We don't want you.
That's good, huh?
Yeah, and
That was a very difficult process, huh?
that's a very difficult process, and I hate it. I hate it, but you have to do, because
Absolutely.
in the end, if you tolerate
Absolutely.
this,
You tolerate
then
this, you tolerate
that
everything.
means that
You tolerate everything.
you tolerate everything,
Sure.
and so that is the beginning of trouble.
Sure.
But that is a lesson I had to learn, because let's say intrinsically I am positivistic and voluntaristic, and and I like always see the glass half full, and I see always good things in people. But sometimes it happens that you have really toxic people, and you have to say goodbye.
Absolutely.
Can we end on a warm,
Positive
on a
note.
positive
I
note?
think that's a very positive.
Most people are
Yes.
super,
Yes,
positive,
by the way.
yes.
People are positive. Sure.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for this wonderful discussion together. I think there's still a lot of work ahead, but we're in the good direction. No?
Hopefully.
Yes. The vision in front of us is clear. So
We
then
know.
Thank you.
yeah,
journey that we
we
need to
know
go.
where we're
pathway, that's good,
heading.
that's good.
Yeah, towards a better
That's good.
patient-inspired
Perfect.
vision. Yes. Then I think it's time to move over to the most important part of why we are all here together.
So thank you very much,
yes,
Megan.
the awards.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you to be present with us. Today, we are going to give you the winners, the list of the winners for each category, and we're very happy to do this. So, thank you first for the hospital, to the Hospital Clinic for welcoming us for this third event, the SPX Awards. The objective of the SPX Awards is to exchange knowledge and best practices in the field of patient experience. It's also to show initiatives that work to guarantee a positive experience for patient and family, and finally to stimulate institutions to develop actions to improve patient experience. So, I'm lost. The institutions for which the patient needs and opinion is a priority and do everything they can to ensure the patient a pleasant stay or visit have been invited to respond to this SPX Awards. First of all, we would like to congratulate all the institutions that applied for this third SPX Awards. The initiatives were of high quality And we really felt this motivation and this desire of institutions to develop actions to improve patient experience. In 2023, there are some news, because last year we received a lot of initiatives from startups and from medical social institutions, and they were not in our rules. So we changed the rules in 1993, and this year we have decided to open the awards to 2 new categories, rather than the only category of hospitals, so medical social institution and startups. This year, every category will receive a prize of 5,000 euro. The sponsors are UZ Brussels Foundation, MSD, and Hospital Clínic, and we thank them sincerely. The prizes will help the winners develop and keep them improving their project. Finally, 3 different juries, one by category, have selected the best projects in each category.
Okay, first I would like to thank you, Nathalie. Nathalie is Mrs. Awards for SPX, and so she was in charge to organize all this process with all the team. And thanks to you, it's a huge success. Once again, it's a huge success because this year we had like 51 initiatives from 7 different countries in all around Europe. And so what does that show from SPX? That shows that SPX keep growing years after years, and that we are more international each year. As you can see, we receive like 18 different initiatives from France, 16 from Spain, 13 from Belgium, and also from Switzerland, UK, New Zealand, and even one from Algeria. So what was the process that we had to, sorry, we have a little video, I think, right now about all the initiative.
I'm going to introduce our project, the use of patient-reported outcome measures in post-stroke patient care. We use the International Consortium for Health Outcomes measurement set of patient-centered outcome measures for stroke. To assess patient self-reported health status, we use the PROMIS Global Health short form, PROMIS-10. This tool measures various aspects of patients' post-stroke experience, including physical function, cognitive function, emotional well-being, and overall quality of life.
Hoy en día tenemos proyectos como el Way, donde a partir de grupos focales con las personas que trabajan en el sistema asistencial del Hospital Clínico y nosotras las pacientes, identificamos barreras y facilitadores, y solo de esta manera podemos crear una asistencia de calidad.
Our project consists in the implementation of a new information transmission model during change shift in a pediatric emergency department. It is based in a structured and multidisciplinary participation of all healthcare professionals involved in the healthcare process.
El proyecto que hemos realizado acerca de la experiencia del paciente en urgencias. El hecho de incorporar la opinión y el punto de vista del paciente nos ha permitido descubrir que los puntos de dolor y áreas de mejora consideradas como prioritarias por los profesionales no siempre se correspondían a los considerados como esenciales por los pacientes.
Est une start-up française cofondée par deux patients, deux professionnels de santé et un ingénieur qui a développé Verbatim-Care, une solution numérique qui utilise le traitement automatique du langage pour aider les acteurs de la santé à mieux comprendre le vécu des patients.
L'application qui renforce le lien entre les patients hospitalisés et leurs soignants. Côté patient, une application simple et ergonomique sous forme de pictogramme. Côté soignant, une vue détaillée et intelligente des demandes des patients, accessible à partir de n'importe quel terminal mobile déjà déployé. C'est une solution clé en main, ne nécessitant aucun investissement.
So that's why we built Exploro, a patient engagement platform that uses an artificially intelligent avatar guide, 3D augmented reality models, and a series of games to help children understand more about their treatment and reduce their anxiety. We work very closely with patients, parents and clinicians to ensure that the information within Exploro is accurate, safe and age appropriate. And our expert advisory board, a group of children aged 8 to 16, are always on hand to keep us on the right track.
Du cours est donné avec la présence de patients partenaires formateurs. Le dispositif de cours a été réfléchi pour avoir des moments en grand groupe et des moments en sous-groupe. On est parti de nos objectifs pédagogiques et des attentes des patients.
La mission première du HTC, c'est de permettre la connexion entre des équipes de recherche clinique ou translationnelle, voire de recherche fondamentale, avec des donateurs.
So that was finalist. How did we choose them? It was like very long and professional process. First, we launched the initiative and we launched a call of opportunities. We received like 51 different initiatives. Then a professional jury decided and selected 12 different initiatives, and to define who is the winner, there was another jury of professionals, one for each different prize, who vote and choose the best initiative for them. And to complete it, we also asked the public to vote to select your your initiative and the best initiative that they wanted, and we selected the winners like that. And Natalie will introduce you right now the different juries that we had for this award.
Yes, so for the first jury that chose the finalist, you had Mark van Kerkhoven. He's Transmural Care Coordinator of AZ Mariami de Lares in Belgium. Bertrand Marcorel, Management in Simultaneous Approach of Patient Experience and Professional Experience in France. Edith Young, Executive Secretary of REA Center in Luxembourg. And Nathalie Bass, Director in Institut Mutualiste Montsouris in France. For the next jury, the second jury that choose the finalist, for the hospital, you have Gertie Dalmans. Gertie Dalmans is present in all categories because the MS Center was the winner in 2022. It was in our rules. She's head coordinator in MS Center Belgium. Dr. De Ram, he is CEO of Ensemble Hospitalier de la Côte in Switzerland. Bram Vermeersch, he's project manager of UZB Foundation. And Tino Marti, academic coordinator of Catalan Society of Healthcare Management in Spain. For the category of startup, you have yes, Gertie Dalmans too, Dieter de Kort, he's Innovation Manager of UZ Brussels in Belgium. Frédéric Ador, he's COO of Swiss Coding in Switzerland. And Julie Valette, Innovation Manager at Hospital Paris Saint-Joseph in France. And for the last category, the Medical Social Institution, so Gertie Dalmans too, Kathleen Duindhoven, she is General Coordinator in Wit Heelekruis in Belgium, Montserrat Moara, Chief Strategy Officer of Institution Aquas in Spain, and Edgar Peters, Director of Fédération Soins à Domicile in Belgium.
We will keep the suspense a little bit, and we will ask you to wait a little bit more, and I will ask Joanne Escarabi to come for a little debate. Yeah, that's the last minute surprise.
10 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. At this point, before the final solution of the jury, we think that it could be interesting to debate with the audience some key elements in the patient experience, no? Because in the real world, we think that the paradigm change is clear. All the speakers talked about the patient-centered care. My question is in which direction we will center our care if it's not in the patients, no? But this is not the same 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we defined quality with Donna Bedian said the process, structure, and results. The people, the Cochrane said effectiveness as a main challenge. In the United States, they promote the safety in the organization of care. This is clear. This is quality, but this is quality for the patients, but without the patients. The paradigm shift is the idea of the value, and this is clear for us. The main question for the audience is how we move from the theoretical framework to the reality, how we can change the reality. And this is probably the first question that I to ask all the people here, no? How we can move from the theory to the practice. This is not easy. I don't know in France or in Belgium here in the hospital, because the challenge is the scalability of the projects. Do you have any idea? Do you have any suggestion to move from the theory to the framework to the reality? And in the panel, do you have... because pilot studies work always well, no? Because the pilot studies invest a lot of time, we invest a lot of efforts and resources, but the main challenge is how we can move from the pilot study to the reality. Do you have any idea? Is there any question in the audience to suggest how we can move? The cultural.
Yes, I think what was discussed before, the general culture, is a starting point, but then maybe we can just think about an overall or a general kindness in the hospital to make it a more warm experience. I think for me as a nurse, that would already make a big difference for my patients.
Do you have any? Yes.
Hi, so I work here at the Hospital Clínic of Barcelona, and well, the answer to that question will be, well, what we are doing here at the Observatory Patient Experience, so just maybe explaining a bit to the audience what we do at the unit. I think it was a bit already explained by Dr. Campistol before. But basically, so our mandate as a transversal unit, who directly depend also of the general management of the hospital, is to evaluate patient experience, but mostly and more importantly also to support the team toward this change, because so we identify the needs, but then we always say, and also thinking of the study of well, Angela Kutler, about it's not ethic to ask the patient if we are not ready to make any changes. So then once we have identified the needs, also the most challenging part will be to supporting the team towards those changes that we have seen necessary to improve patient experience. So how can we do that, and how we do it at the Hospital Clínic of Barcelona? Well, we use for evaluation qualitative methodology to evaluate the needs. We also use quantitative indicators. Well, we are working on it also to develop those battery of indicators a bit more and implement them in a most systematic manner. And then, yeah, we try to support the team in a long-term perspective, which is not always possible also because our limitation, and you asked the question about obstacle before, one obstacle, what we see in our unit is the time that you need to spend to really materialize those needs. So it's not from one day to another. Well, of course, we see different type of needs. So the one that are easy to implement, but then the one, you know, that need more in-depth thinking and changes. So this is how we do it. I can keep talking a bit more if you're interested in our model, but happy also that we are represented here with a project that we have started some years ago on endometriosis. Eva Flo, the patient, one of the patients with who we've been working, was on the video, so it's a great honor to be to see that on the screen today, and especially for a disease like that, women health disease, invisible disease. Women, the average to reach diagnosis is around 8 to 10 years. So you can imagine what is the patient experience for this group of patients. So many work to be done in this aspect. But yeah, I think it was. I hope it was a practical answer to your question. So how can we do it? And this is how we do it at the hospital clinic. And I think as a team, I work for the team. I'm talking on behalf of the team, but it's a honor to be able to develop this type of work in such a great hospital.
Thank you for your contribution and a lot of information. It's very interesting. What I hear foremost is that you are very actively working on this subject. And then maybe that's the key to know it's not going to fall out of the sky and just happen like that. I think it has to be like you do it. You have to really have a team and be actively working and planning and yeah, it's not going to happen out of nowhere.
Because as you were saying, so it's not happening out of nowhere. And first of all, it was a vision. So a vision of the top management of Dr. Campistol and his team to really put that into the strategic planning. And not only, you know, as we said earlier, in the planning, and we do nothing that we are already doing, but really try to find an operational way to really implement patient experience. And this was through the creation of the Living Lab, the observatory, and to consolidate also a team, a small one, but a team that is fully dedicated to patient experience. This is what we do every day.
Okay, there are some suggestions here.
Yes, I think we have time. No?
Yes, yes.
Maybe a small example, it has to do with behavioral change. And so you have to use social psychology and nudging. To give you one example, every 3 months we have a town hall meeting with all the heads of departments. And we had, from our review from the patients, we knew that there were some departments which had very long waiting lists for making telephone appointments. So the patients had to wait long before they would, one, be connected and then given an appointment, but also the time they had to spend on the phone. And now we know everything, we measure everything. So what we did was 2 things. We made a list of all the secretaries and where people could phone for an appointment. We made a ranking and we asked the best teams to present their best practice. And we said nothing about the bad teams, but we showed the results. And we didn't say anything, just showed the results. Nobody wants to be at the bottom. So a year later, when we repeated the measurement, those who were in the bottom were now going up. So you don't have to, you don't have to punish, but reward the good ones, and then make use of this typical human behavior that you don't want to be the bad pupil of the class, So it's some little things, little tricks that make behavior change. Just a tip.
Okay. There are here, okay. No.
Just one comment. Totally agree. One difficulty is that sometimes healthcare professionals see patient experience as a threat because they think they are going to be assessed, and we need to change this point of view because I really think it's a lever for attractiveness. So, yeah, it can take time because patients and professionals do not have the same references, and there can be misunderstandings. So sometimes it takes time to go forward, but after a certain amount of time, it works.
Un micro allà darrere.
Hi, I want only to add, I think one of the most important things is communication. I think all the work are you doing here, for example, is very important to communicate, internal communication, to impregnate all the personnel of the hospital to this new culture, because it's all the whole organization has to be involved, no, to achieve the goal. No, the main goal, no, is center the patient.
Perfect. There are more opinions about the changes here.
Okay,
sorry.
So only one thing. For me, it's very important that you integrate the patient experience in the strategy. This is a key thing, and it's important to share with professionals the results to put in the center of our care, the patients, because we can have better results in all the things that we do if we put in the center the patient. And that's, like my colleague, it's very important to build a communication strategy to assure that all the professionals know these good results. Yes.
Well, I just wanted to introduce a word in the debate that is the word responsibility. I think it's about changing responsibility. Historically, the responsibility of the body has been in the physician, and I think it's important that it goes back to the patient also. So it's a challenging thing not to be responsible of your illness and your experience, but at the same time, I think it's very empowering, and it's central to feel that you have an active role in your life, even if you're a patient and even if you're suffering.
So many of the benefits of patient experience are long-term and difficult to quantify, and don't fit well with hospital procurement, which is very often based on year-on-year cost savings. So I think it's important that we change procurement models so that hospitals can purchase solutions that favour patient experience without having to demonstrate an annual cost saving.
Very interesting, because in the interventions there are, I think, that the key topics in patient experience, and Sophie talked about the role of the patients, the evaluation, the best practice, the idea of the communication, the cost of the healthcare, the integration in the strategic plan and communication. And I think are very interesting ideas that we need to consider as key strategic ideas. Thinking about these ideas, there are some patients in the room. Everybody said that the participation of the patients is very important, but one of the risks is the British word tokenism, no? The ornamental participation of the patients, no? Because in some cases everybody said, okay, the patient is very important, the role, but patients, what do you agree? This is ornamental, your participation in the patient experience, or not? What we can change? What do you said?
It depends of who calls you. It depends where you are. And in some places, yes, it's only to say we have patients, but we are not taken
active role.
Really. I would like to ask the panel, how do you select the patients with whom you work? How do you get them engaged with the Experience project? How do you keep them engaged? And if you give them any type of formation or training?
Any opinion?
We didn't choose the patient partners ourselves. We just choose the patient experience coordinator, and she was a former patient and caregiver of our hospital, and we just gave her a free card to choose and select the patients. Of course, she tried to combine different kind of people, different kind of pathologies, so to have something which could be representative of the majority of our patients. But it was not so easy, because so that patients dare to speak. You deal with patients who often are educated, so it could be a bias in the representation. That's something we could work on for the future. But well, I think it's important also not to have consumerism relationship. You know, our partners are volunteers. They do not involve themselves in peer support, because my fear would be that it could be a kind of influencing, and that could lead to conflicts of interest. So there is something that I don't want to go there. Maybe one of the obstacle of the patient experience in hospitals is that if we compared hospitals to the industry, for example, in industry, customer service, customer satisfaction, customer experience is at the center of strategic plans for decades, because you have an evident link with growing business. It's a bit more difficult in the hospitals, so sometimes in hospitals the patient experience is just something like greenwashing for sustainable development, you know, something ornamental, but meaningless. So we have to find the final outcomes that need the requirements of patient experience.
I think that Christina asked us two interesting questions. One is how we select patients, but other is what kind of education we perform for the patients to participate in. No? And I want to comment just a good experience with Dr. Carmona in gynecology here, that we organize a course. You were involved in the course. It was very interesting because we organize a course for the patients, not about the disease, because there are a lot of information about the diseases. It's in the case of endometriosis. But the idea was to share with the patients what kind of tools they need to participate in the hospital. And the director of strategy of the hospital, the economical director of the institute, all the members of the team, the gynecologists, explain the patients the conditions that we work, what's the origin of the budget, how we decide, because it's very important to know this. And sometimes, especially clinicians, we focus on the disease, and there are a lot of information about the diseases, but it's very important how hospital clinic works. We don't have money, we have a contract with a cat salute, and that means that we have a contract, that means we have the activity well decided with the cat salute. This is important because the improvements of the services sometimes are very related to the constraints of the budget and the constraints of the local circumstances. I think it's for us, I think it's a good example of ideas that we can improve the participation of the patients. Do you want to some comments or not? I have more questions.
Yeah. For instance, the patients that are sitting in our more formal structures, like the ethics committee, those patients, we opened it on the website that we were looking for patients, and you have a certain type of education between brackets needed to sit in an ethical committee, because you have to know the laws and etc. But we give also the training of those people. For the more informal gatherings, patients choose us. They propose and they come with ideas, etc. And then we invite them. So we have quite a number of patients. As I said, we have every day 3,500 feedbacks. So, and there you see in the open text, but some patients even propose their candidacy. Even, can I come and explain what I mean, etc., etc. So it's a very informal process.
In the first question that I asked to the audience, some people suggest the idea of the importance of the evaluation. No? And what's your opinion about the evaluation? Because probably it's one of the challenge of the patient experience, no? Because we use it to evaluate the effectiveness of the medical practice, and everybody agree with the indicators or with some key issues in the process. But how we can evaluate it? One thing. Another one, we can compare the results of patient experience from one hospital to another one. what's the standard of the, do you have any suggestion about the evaluation of the, some organizations work about the patient-reported experience measurements, some ideas. Do you have some suggestion about the evaluation, and Sophie?
It's not an answer to your question, it's a question to, to Mark, but it goes in line. It's not another topic, it's on evaluation, but you mentioned that you systematically evaluate all your patients on NPS, this Net Promoter Score, so they have to rate on a general, somehow, level their feeling about their care. So it's not specific around information or respect to their values or accessibility or whatever dimension of, it's general, right? But then you also said you have open comments, so I guess they are able to give a narrative and explain a bit. So I was curious to know a bit more on, well, how you do it, who is doing it, and because I guess it can generate like a quite high volume of narrative to be analyzed. So I was curious to know how you were doing it.
That's a very good question, because it's not that we have 3,500 open text comments per day. Not everybody uses this tool to give comments, but the ones that do probably have to say something. And that's, if I'm correct, it's 200-300 comments a day. So it's not, it's big, but it's not, you know, overwhelming, and it is per service, so per department. So we have, so we spread the reading, and we are now experimenting with artificial intelligence to look for keywords that come out. So, and we are trying this for the moment, and this will be probably how it will end, that we will have some kind of machine learning on this topic. But you see very quickly the keywords coming out. As I said, because of the construction sites we had, parking and wayfinding, that was coming out of every comment. So we knew it, that we had to do something about that. But also the positive comments come out. So, and then referring to your question, how do you measure and compare patient experience? That's a tricky one. You have prems and proms, etc., but those are also disease related and not so much experience, really experience related, the human factor. It's a very good question. I don't have the answer.
Mara, do you want to ask some questions, some suggestions about the measurements?
Some suggestions, because as he has said, it's a tricky question. I think maybe it would be easy just to focus on at which level are you referring to, at micro, meso, or macro level, just to help a little bit on the evaluation. I mean, if you are referring much more at the meso level, at the healthcare center level, maybe, of course, you need methodology, how to evaluate it. It could be quantitative and qualitative methodology, but maybe you here do not need any prems, which is it's quite instrument robust and much more psychometric validated, that it would be used at the macro level when something at system level should be refined, should be identified, and compare between all the healthcare centers that are delivering this healthcare attention. And of course, there are not instruments validated at PREMS. There are a lot of prompts, or much more prompts, and that can be used to compare at different centers. Yes.
Yes.
First, the same as Mark just said. We launched work with 2 other comprehensive cancer centers with the CLCCs of Caen and Lille in France. And our conclusion was that it is interesting to have the same methodology, but it is meaningless to try to compare our results with other results, because it depends on so many things. What is really interesting is to compare ourselves to compare the evolution of a care pathway, but trying to compare between the hospitals is very, very tricky.
Okay, thank you. In the first question, I want to ask a question to Dr. Campistol. No, because in the previous intervention, they said that it's very important to integrate XPA in the strategy of the hospital. You mentioned the strategic plan of 2016. I think it's a key issue in the evolution of the patient experience in the hospital, because without the strategic plan, patient experience could be an activity, but not a key activity. To what extent is difficult to introduce in the strategic plan these ideas and this concept? How, from your point of view of the general manager of the hospital, how difficult is from the framework to the practice?
To introduce in the strategic plan was very easy, because I lead. I said we need to have this point in the yes. strategic plan, and I take the decision. That's it. That's very easy. It takes 5 minutes. We were in the monastery of Montserrat. It's a very inspired place, so it's very easy to take the decision. The other thing is how we can implement it, the shared experience patient in our hospital. So one thing is to have a PowerPoint, as we mentioned before, which takes half an hour, and the other thing is to develop as a pathway, as a way to have the patient's experience in your strategic plan. I think in that retreat that we have at that time was quite easy, and everybody thinks that it's absolutely essential for the hospital. The other thing, I think we start a big travel. I think we start a pathway, and I think we are in process. I don't know how good we are. Could be 5%, could be 50%. I really don't know. It depends how you compare. I think we are in process, but I think every day the voice of the patient, it's much more present in our hospital than before. We are not perfect. We are not excellent. But I think we are in the way to have a good hospital and to consider the voice of the patients. But to take the decision at that time was very easy, and I think was a quite good agreement between everybody in this retreat. The other thing is how you implemented this decision. But to take the decision was quite easy.
But I think it's interesting, the idea of process. No?
Yeah.
We need to start and then to start to work.
Sure,
no?
sure. But I think Mark mentioned that. I think it's absolutely essential that it's not only the CO, it's every director, the medical director, the nurse director, everything in the hospital with DL persons has the same idea and give the same relevance to this point. It's only a problem of the CO. We never will implement it. If it's a situation or a desire of everybody, the thing will be in the process, in the way. But as I mentioned, you mentioned, I think it's a pathway. It's a way to be there. We never will be on the line. We never will be at the end. But we are in the process, and every year and every day we change and we try to improve. Yeah, that's the way to develop. Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's easy to make it a strategic pillar that is just semantics. What we have tried to do now is to establish a balanced scorecard with KPIs and just checking, because yes, 2 days ago we had our monthly review of all the KPIs, and so culture is one of them. So and we have NPS and other stuff, but also sick leave, personal satisfaction that we measure, etc. So it's also a question of measuring, because otherwise, it starts and it tends to dissipate and dilute in time. But you have to, I think, keep it awake. And we also report it to the board every 6 months, so that they are aware. So otherwise, it will be a one-shot exercise. And that's what we learned from the past, where we didn't do that. And it was very quickly diluted in time with other challenges that come up.
We need to remember periodically that.
Exactly, and measure and follow up and look at the trends and then react. That's also something we had to learn. Not only look at the graphs and say, now who is going to do what about it.
Okay, thank you. There is another interesting word that it means responsibility of the patient. Some people talk about the idea of the responsibility of the patients. What this means? My question is, we transfer responsibility to the patients to avoid our responsibility, or we transfer power to the patient to decide. No? Probably this is a different question. No? You said that in reality we transfer power to the patient or not? Yes, we see that we transfer power to the patient. No, but the question, the key question, no, is we really transfer power to the patient or not?
Yeah, it's up to us to make clear that it's okay for them to open up the voice. Yeah, we're both responsible, like you say, but if we don't give them the power, they will never speak up, or not the way we would want to.
That we always had the power. It's not about physicians giving the power. It's obvious that people has the power of their own bodies, but it's like a lie and something like politic that we feel like we don't have it. And so the physicians at that point say, okay, you have always had the power, and I take this position to be like horizontal, how do you say horizontal? I don't know. Horizontal, no? So it's not about I have the power and I give it to you because you are in an inferior position. It's about I recognize your own power and I respect it.
¿Y alguna pregunta para ti?
Hi, good evening. So about empowering patients, for me, of course, it's pretty obvious that we have to empower patients to enable them to make their choices. However, I do find myself every day when I work with patients, we work in the emergency department. Sometimes they find themselves in such a vulnerable position that perhaps it's not that easy for them to make certain choices because they don't have the knowledge, because they don't have the studies. And although you want to give them all the choices at that point, they feel desperate because it's like, oh, what do you want me to say right now? I don't have the keys right now. I'm in a position where I have to make decisions that maybe I haven't thought about in my life. Whereas for me, it's something that I do every day in my daily medical practice. So I think it's a very interesting point, giving them responsibility, but perhaps always thinking about choices. Not only, I want to empower you, but do you want to be empowered? Perhaps you just want to, trust your doctor, and that's also okay.
And this is interesting because links with the idea of communication, of the need of communication for the patients. And another idea that we work with AWARDS, the Catalan agency, is the decision-making process and the sharing decisions. No? Because to decide to have responsibility, you need information, and information is a key issue in the communication. And for us, is the starting point. Without information, without good communication, it's very difficult to do that. Do you have any comments about? Do you have any comments or not? No. Sorry, but because I made a mistake. Sorry.
You have to act, of course. No, but if we are deciding what can you do in the next months for a treatment, no, you have to reduce this asymmetry, no, and maybe you can take part of the decision, no. I think it's a very different situation, no, and we have to make a different, no. Of course, the knowledge is in the doctor. But there are some situations where you can share the final decision, no? Thanks.
But all this opinion links with our local experience in patient evaluation, that we think that there are 3, 4, 5 things that are very important for the patient, and for information is very important for the patient. Accessibility to the health professionals is important, but that also the impact in the daily life, it's a key issue, but time management and shared decisions are very important for the patients. In this very complex area of the patient experience, probably we can summarize it in a 4 or 5 key issues that could improve patient experience without a lot of explanations. No? I don't know if you have any comments about the shared decision, because this is for us a key element in the patient experience. No? In order, especially in my opinion, is the shared decision is a way to move from the theoretical framework to the real life. No? Do you have any comment about the shared patient experience? Teniu algun... No? Yes.
Shared decision making, it's one of the dimensions of patient experience among the others that you have mentioned. And I think that it's quite even, and you said, I think that when there are more than one option, even the option of doing nothing at that moment, and there are some treatments that it's quite relevant to have these patient decision aids that help this conversation, this moving from the much more paternalistic model to the much more deliberative model that leads to this pathway a little bit, and have this conversation between at least these two people, the professional and the patient, or even the patient with relatives and friends and whatever. But in the end, it should be this balance between what is much more the clinical and scientific information that has to be translated in a clear way and understandable, and the patient and the person that has these preferences, values, and whatever, that also has the right and the responsibility or whatever of having this time to share this with the professional. And in the end, even it should be this kind of agreement on what is the solution at that moment, because what we have been just having some evidence on that after elaborating many patient decision aids is that it's and that the much more target of objective of these aids is when it's much more chronic conditions, where the decision is at any time of that key point of that at different times of the disease. So this is quite a long, training on communication capacities, abilities for the part of professionals, and also for the people and patients, of having this much more cultural way of participating in the things that correspond to our health. So.
Thank you. I think that...
Just one thing more. You talked about emergency unit. Of course, when you are in an emergency, you are not able, many times, to decide what you want to choose as a treatment. But that's not the point. The point is that your family is with you in the emergency cabin. The point is that you don't feel alone. The point is that you have support, your family support. That's the point, not deciding if you have this treatment or the other one. As Montse says, as a chronic illness, you have time to decide, to read, and the decision, but not in an emergency point.
When it comes to evaluating the experience of patients in the emergency room, you have to take into account different aspects, because the emergency room is very hostile. It's a very hostile situation, and patients can feel very vulnerable. And I totally agree with you that families, companions that are with you at that point, taking care of them also, apart from the patient, I think it's one of the keys to getting better when it comes to the experience of the patient in the emergency room.
Sorry. In fact, when we asked the patients about their experience in our emergency room, the principal things that they say that they are also preoccupied for their families, not about them, and not about their disease or their process in this episode. It's about their families, their comfortable chair for their family, or that his husband or wife has something to eat. And we are a little surprised because we didn't expect that. And I think this is the key about changing the view, that we have to sit with the patient, ask them, what do you think? What is the problem? What is your feeling here? And we also learn about a lot of things that we didn't expect. And this is I think the different thing about emergency and chronic sorry about my English. Follow-up.
No, this is interesting, the debate, because probably emergency department is not the best place to share decisions and to start a decision process. But in any place and any case, the information is crucial. And we can avoid information even in emergency department. And probably the doctor take decisions in the benefit of the patients without a short range of discussion, because the time, but we need to clarify information. It's interesting because links with the initial idea of information.
I would just like to illustrate with an example. In our hospital, there is a debate between practitioners about what is the right moment to give the information to the patient. And it's not always so easy, you know, because some of our doctors think that when you have the results of imaging, and if the patient asks for it, you should share with him. And other doctors think that, no, it's a partial information. The patients should wait until they see the medical oncologist to have a full information. And if patients have access too early to the information, they could be misguided. And well, it's a debate, and I don't know what is.
And this is a very difficult question, because even the patient has the right to avoid information. I don't like information. I don't want work as you wish. No? But this is interesting debate. No? No, digas.
So it's a question on what we are talking, right? And we have seen there are different typologies of patient, the one that wants to know and the one that does not want to know, and according to the somehow where you find yourself within your pathway, maybe it will change that way, it might be dynamic, maybe at some point you don't want to know and then you want to know. And it just made me think, would it be as simple just to ask the patient? I don't know how to ask that, but I remember when I was pregnant at the ecology, they ask you, do you want to know if it's the sex of the baby? So is it maybe as simple as just asking the patient in consultation, or just what do you want to know and how you want to know it? Just to be able to adjust to the patient that we have in front, well, that the health professional have in front of them.
We are near the final of the debate, but I want to suggest or to share with you the last idea that we performed. It's the idea of the best practice. It's important to share best practice, and best practice including cost. No? And it's clear that we need to understand how patient experience works in different areas, and we can not exactly copy, but to learn with the best practice and to share. This is the idea of the awards that we have here in the shared patient experience. And this is a very interesting issue. I think that to conclude, I want to suggest, to share with you some ideas about what we need to promote a shared patient experience. No? My feeling is that first of all, we need the commitment of the highest management level of the hospital. Without the commitment of the general director, it's very difficult to do that. The second thing that I think we need to promote shared patient experience is the clinical leadership. This is not an administrative activity. Implies all the members will be involved in the patient experience, but the clinical leadership is crucial. The third issue that I think is important is the team working, but team working including patients in the team. No? Without the patients in the team, it's very difficult to do that. No? The fourth issue that we try to apply is a pragmatism. We will not change the world tomorrow morning. It's very difficult to change the world. And the pragmatism said us, we need to improve the patient experience step by step. No? And the last main topics I think it's important to improve is accountability. No? We need to share the results. We need to share the why we do that or why we don't do that. No? Because sometimes we can do some things and the general managers of the hospitals they know perfectly that not all the things that the patients need could be done and applied in the same time. No? And probably, in my opinion, to summarize the discussion, this 5 issue could be useful to promote and to improve patient experience. Okay, I think we need to move to the next step in the meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Scarabil, and thank you everyone for your intervention. So now, it's it's the moment to announce the winners.
So it's time, the moment that you are all expecting. First, briefly, the finalists for the hospital prize. There is 4 Spanish hospitals in this category this year. The first one is Gregorio Magnon Hospital, Hospital Clínic Barcelona, Hospital San Juan Deu, Bellevitge Universitary Hospital, and Groupe Santé CHE in Belgium. In the startup category, the first one is Explorer, Massana, Verbatim.care, and Hospital Link. And in the last category, the shortlist in health and social institution is Elmo, WZC Residency L Presols, and Fonds de Dotation HTC Project. And to give the prize, a different prize, I have the pleasure and honor to ask la señora Beltal, who is Secretary de Atención Sanitaria y Participación por Cataluña, to come here and to join us. So the first prize, the winner of the hospitals category.
L'Hospital Clínic. No? Poden venir a recollir el premi els de l'Hospital Clínic? Ui, no t'havia vist. Ah. Qui el recull? Va. Oh.
Bravo, bravo, bravo.
M'han fet cosa molt.
Gracias. Vale, lo cojo yo. Pero el mérito es vuestro.
No, no. Ay, qué bonito.
Muchas gracias. Mira, Sofía. Aquí.
Això és l'important, eh?
Home, això és l'important. Perfecte. Bueno, per a les pacients. Sí, no, molt agraïts des de la unitat d'endometriosi per aquest premi i bueno, això, segur que farem molt bona feina amb el premi. Moltes gràcies.
I think we have a short video also from the Hospital Clínic.
Los miembros de la unidad de endometriosis del Hospital Clínic siempre estamos preocupados por mejorar la calidad de la asistencia que tenemos a nuestros pacientes. Y creemos que hacerles participar en este proceso, que cambiar la manera en cómo lo hacíamos y hacer que sean los pacientes el verdadero centro de atención de la asistencia, es la innovación más importante que hemos tenido, que hemos desarrollado en los últimos 2 o 3 años.
Actualmente, pues esta toma de decisiones se basa en este proceso compartido a lo largo de este seguimiento. Este cambio de mentalidad pasa que todo el equipo y la sociedad en sí pues es capaz de afrontarlo y de hacerlo con estas nuevas herramientas.
Hoy en día tenemos proyectos como el On the Way, donde a partir de grupos focales con las personas que trabajan en el sistema asistencial del Hospital Clínico y nosotras las pacientes, identificamos barreras y facilitadores y solo de esta manera podemos crear una asistencia de calidad.
Desde el Observatorio de la Experiencia del Paciente, juntamente con el Servicio de Ginecología del Hospital Clínic, hemos desarrollado el proyecto Endomway, destinado a identificar las necesidades no cubiertas de las pacientes con endometriosis y proponer acciones de mejora en los procesos asistenciales. Para ello, hemos desarrollado grupos focales, entrevistas en profundidad, encuestas y talleres de co-creación, donde han participado múltiples pacientes y hemos desarrollado 3 grupos de trabajo relacionados con la información, el seguimiento a largo plazo y el impacto de la enfermedad, en los cuales estamos trabajando para implementar estas acciones de mejora.
Thank you and congratulations to Hospital Clínic. I would just like to say that from far, you win in the jury votes this year. And the next category is a startup prize, so I will let you know.
Vale, ara ja m'he entrenat millor, Bé, el premi per aquest segon premi és Exploro, és el guanyador. Això no l'entro, això no ho he d'entrar.
Bravo.
There is a small video too, I think, yes.
Hi, my name's Dom Rabin, and this is my daughter Izzy. When she was 13, she was diagnosed with cancer. Thankfully, she's 10 years cancer-free, but when she was ill, nobody told her what to expect, and that left her feeling scared, anxious, and alone. So that's why we built Exploro, a patient engagement platform that uses an artificially intelligent avatar guide, 3D augmented reality models, and a series of games to help children understand more about their treatment and reduce their anxiety. We work very closely with patients, parents and clinicians to ensure that the information within Exploro is accurate, safe and age appropriate. And our expert advisory board, a group of children aged 8 to 16, are always on hand to keep us on the right track.
I really liked how the avatar was customisable and how the room ideas were coming along.
It really tells people and tells yourself about what is happening and what the truth is, what the nurses were putting into my body, why I was being put into surgery. It's also a very fun game, like customising your avatar, playing Bendy Bones or the spaceship one. gets your mind off what might be happening to you.
We started with children with cancer, but we're building a patient engagement platform for any patient of any age with any condition anywhere in the world.
And finally, the last category, health and social institutions.
Moltes gràcies. Ara us faré estar així una miqueta. Bé, i el guanyador d'aquest premi és Elmo. Vinga, els calarons primer. Felicitacions. Això també és per tu. I ara dos petons.
Yes, sure, you can, of course.
Thank you very much. And I would say it's very important to work, all of you said this morning, in the formation. I am a teacher, and I try to learn to my students what we said this morning, and it's very interesting for us to continue, and with the prize we can continue. Thank you.
Par ce cours, nous avons vraiment l'objectif de développer le partenariat patient et on espère semer des graines pour que plus tard, quand ils seront sur le terrain, ce partenariat devienne quelque chose de tout à fait naturel pour eux.
100% du cours est donné avec la présence de patients partenaires formateurs. Le dispositif de cours a été réfléchi pour avoir des moments en grand groupe et des moments en sous-groupe. On est parti de nos objectifs pédagogiques et des attentes des patients.
Ça change énormément mon point de vue et ma façon de faire. Je réfléchis plus maintenant, depuis que j'ai eu ce cours, à comment expliquer à la personne ce qu'elle pourrait mettre en place et aussi à dialoguer avec elle pour savoir ce qu'elle sait et ce qu'elle fait déjà. Je trouve que c'est très enrichissant d'avoir des patients qui peuvent nous permettre d'être un meilleur soignant pour demain.
Ça change du mode d'apprentissage classique. Le contexte n'est pas le même. Ils sont vraiment ouverts à transmettre.
Ça m'a permis de prendre énormément confiance en moi. Et puis ça permet de développer une relation avec le soignant qui est très différente de la relation qu'on a à l'hôpital.
Déjà, c'est très valorisant parce que quand on est malade, on a l'impression de ne plus servir à grand chose. On est en train de changer des paradigmes. C'est réhumaniser des soins en fait.
Ça nous sort un petit peu du contexte souffrance. C'est une grande satisfaction. Le fait de communiquer sur nos pathologies qui, pour la plupart des patients partenaires, sont peu ou mal connus.
La place du patient doit être différente et donc le cours a aussi plus largement cette visée-là. On a un peu envie de changer la société autour de la vision du patient.
So congratulations, very big and very good project, so congratulations. So there is the end of this event. Thank you everyone. There is a little catering just after, I don't know where. It's here? Just, we will guide you.
5th floor.
5th floor, okay. So our next colloquium, SPX Colloquium 2023, the patient experience as a structural lever for health services, will take place in Marseille from October 10 to 12. So don't hesitate to register, and we can see all the information on our website, so you can just look after if you want. We would like to thank you again, the Hospital Clínic, for welcoming us for our third SPX Awards. And I will close this SPX Awards by let's share our experiences to constantly develop the patient experience. So Thank you and see you on next SPX Awards in 2024. Thank you to Mrs. Bertral and thank you to Stefan to be with me if you want to say something.
Sí. Gràcies a tothom. Em permeten que m'expressi amb el meu idioma, el d'aquí de Catalunya. Han estat unes jornades molt enriquidores. Nosaltres des del departament som els que portem la bandereta de la participació, d'escoltar el malalt i d'aprendre del malalt en les accions que es puguin portar a nivell d'hospital i també de l'atenció primària. Els animo a seguir treballant en el mateix camí i trobaran uns aliats en el Departament de Salut. En nom del conseller Balcells, moltes gràcies de tot cor. Gràcies.